Welcome to the Retirement Guy Podcast with Gary Alden from the Kingwood Investment Group. In this podcast, we educate people in or near retirement so they can make informed decisions and bridge the confidence gap. Learn how to mitigate risk in retirement so you don't run out of money before you run out of you. Join Gary Alden and explore strategies on how to live a stress-free retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Retirement Guy with Gary Alden from Kingwood Investment Group. Today we're going to be talking about 529 savings plans. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm just fine, Eric. And yourself?
Doing great. 529, that has to do with college, correct? Or schooling, education?
Yes, it does.
All right. What are we're going to be covering 529 savings plans, and I know that that's just one very specific issue. I'm assuming there's a lot to talk about in this issue. So where are we going to start today?
Well, just kind of give you some background and go through some basic bullet points. 529 plans, they were created back in 1996, and they are a federal plan. But even though it's a federal plan, it's actually implemented by each state. And there's actually over 50 different plans because some states offer more than one plan. And there's a few states that don't even offer one. But you can always use another state's plan. So they were created back in 1996, and they're officially known as QTPs, or Qualified Tuition Programs. And they are tax advantage education vehicles, and they're one of the most popular ways that people today use to save for college. They can also now be used for K through 12 tuition. Oh. But there's a limitation now in K through, and by the way, that's new. That just happened in the last couple of years. And there is a little bit of a misconception, even though most people are putting money into a 529 savings plan for college, they can be used for a recognized trade school. And I think you know, Eric, because I know you've got kids, grandkids. Don't you have great-grandkids now or great-great-grandkids?
not quite. I'm a few years off of that, yeah.
Okay, well, close. Anyway, maybe someday. But a lot of, grandparents and so forth want to contribute to 529 plans to, fund their grandchild's education. And for years, everybody said college. Well, as long as a recognized trade school has a federal code, and again, you've got to check with that particular trade school because and I know not everybody's cut up for college. Not everybody wants to go to college. In fact, I swear up and down, I had my plumber out to my house a couple of weeks ago, and I wish I made the money that the plumber makes per hour.
I'll tell you what, they're bringing it in as they're pushing it out, right? I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah, and in years in the future, hey, colleges as we know them today, maybe you just go to a school to learn technology, website design, whatever that happens to be. So it's not necessarily just for college, and it's also not just for college in the United States. If you have a recognized college, say in Spain, which one of my, she was actually used to work for me, and then she went to college in Spain for 1 year, and it was covered by her 529 plan because it was a recognized institution of higher learning in Spain.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, here's the thing. We've got a good foundation for what we're talking about today, and Gary, I'll be honest, I come to you for my education, and part of the education that I always get is your trivia question. Do you have one for me today?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yes, we do. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, no problem.
You have probably seen, because I remember watching Sesame Street with my kids.
Yeah.
And there were two characters on there. To me, the most two famous characters were Bert and Ernie.
Got it.
And Bert and Ernie were not just randomly named. They were actually named after some characters elsewhere out there in the entertainment world. So the question today is, Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street, who were they named after?
I actually know this one.
Hey, you finally got one. That's not bad. 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I know this one. Do you want me just to name the movie?
Hey, let's save that for a surprise.
Sure. All right, we'll wait to the end, and I'll make my guess then, and you can tell me either yes, you're right, or way off.
Okay. So again, getting back to 529 savings plans, They offer a unique combination of features that you cannot find in any other type of education savings vehicles, because there are things like UTMA accounts, UGMA accounts, education IRAs. So there's several different ways to save for college. But when you put money into a 529 savings plan, your money accumulates tax deferred. And then again, as long as the earnings are tax-free, as long as they are used to pay for the beneficiary, in other words, the child, for their qualified education expenses. Now, if you don't use them for qualified education expenses, then you're going to pay your normal tax rate plus a 10% penalty.
Ouch.
And that came, and one of my clients called me one day and they said, "Hey, Gary, I want to spend some money to buy my child a car for college." Well, when you look at what is covered under the expenses you can use for 529 plans, cars are not one of the legitimate expenses. Legitimate expenses, tuition, room, board, books, those are things that's covered. So if that's what you're paying for, you're not going to pay any kind of tax on the growth of your 529 account. So your 529 account, when used properly, grows tax deferred. When you take out the money, as long as it's used for qualified educational expenses, it's income tax free. Pretty good deal.
Nice.
Now, the one thing that you do have to make sure of is that, by the way, I can use, as a citizen of the United States, I can use any 529 plan in the United States I want to use. So even though I live in Texas, I could use the Texas plan, I could use the Virginia plan, the Oregon plan, any plan out there. Now, you might want to use your own state-specific plan. I'll give you one example. One of my clients several years ago, they moved to Oregon. They called me up one day. They said, "We want to open a 529 account." So I did some research. Oregon has state income tax. However, if you buy the Oregon 529 plan, the one that's sponsored by the state of Oregon, you get a deduction off your Oregon state income tax. So there's one reason you might want to use your specific state plan if you get some kind of tax advantage from your state. Here in Texas, we don't have any income tax, so there's no advantage for me using the Texas plan. To me, I go out and find the best plan that fits me and my family. So again, you also have a neat little thing. Anybody can put money into a 529 savings plan, regardless of what your income is. For an example, if you have too much income, you cannot contribute to a Roth IRA. That's not true on 529 plans. You could be Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, anybody, and you are able to put money into a 529 plan and let the money grow tax deferred. And as long as it's used, again, for qualified educational expenses, there's no tax on any of the earnings. Now, most plans have a large lifetime contribution limit. It's usually about $350,000 or more. So that means if, Eric, you wanted to put up $350,000 for each of your grandchildren into a 529 plan, you could.
Nice.
I don't know about you. I don't have an extra $350,000 laying around to put into a plan for a grandchild. But all it does is says, hey, you can put in a lot of money to help fund college. Mm-hmm. Now, when you put money in a 529 savings plan, again, covering tuition, fees, room, board, books, not cars, not yet. Maybe someday they'll change the rules. And that's at any college, graduate school in the United States. And as we talked before, it could be a college outside the United States. It could be a recognized trade school. Whatever it costs. It costs you $50,000 a year to go to college. You can spend $50,000. Now, one of the new wrinkles that they changed the law here a year or so ago, you can now use your 529 savings plan for paying K through 12 tuition expenses. Mm-hmm. However, there's a limit on that of $10,000 per year. So if you are sending a child to, say, private school, you could take money out of 529 up to that $10,000 limit and not pay any taxes on that money. So pretty good deal.
Yeah. How does that work, Gary? How does that work if let's say you started a 529 plan the moment you found out you're pregnant, right? So you've got 5 or 6 years under your belt of putting money into this plan. So there's no issues with taking any money out on a yearly basis, as long as obviously you've got the money in there to take out.
Right.
Nice. Okay. So there's no issue as far as how long. It doesn't have to be established 3 years before, 5 years before, 10 years before. There's no limitation or expectation of that?
Exactly right.
Oh, good. Okay.
Now, again, 529 savings plans are offered by the individual states, but they are managed by designated financial companies. Mm-hmm. So in Virginia, I think they have one, and they've designated a certain mutual fund company in Virginia to manage that money. And to offer different, choices to you as the owner of the plan. And again, normally, you as the parent or grandparent, you're going to own the plan, and then your child or your grandchild, they're going to be the beneficiary of the plan.
So you said you can use any plan from any state, correct? And you don't have to go to school in that state. It's
correct.
Just you can use any plan from any state. So how do you, and maybe you've already got this one, or this is going to be later in the podcast, but how do you choose, or how do you find out all the different plans from all the different states so you can make the best decision for you and your family?
Well, part of it is you would need to go out and do research on your own. But I recommend, of course, I'm a financial advisor. I recommend you talk to your financial advisor, your financial professional. If they're up to speed on 529 plans, some financial advisors are, some aren't. We stay up with it. That's one reason we're doing the podcast today on 529 plans, because we think it's a very, very important savings vehicle and a very good tax advantage savings vehicle for folks out there.
So you and your team are already aware of the different plans each state has so that you can sit down with a family that's interested and go through them.
Right. And
Perfect.
If you live in a particular state we don't have experience with, we'll get on the internet and research it. And sometimes, just like on the Oregon plan, several years ago, I read their features on the internet, but I still had some questions. So I just picked up the phone and called them. And that way I could advise my client, because I had knowledge about exactly how their particular plan and their particular state really worked.
Nice.
So under federal laws, you're entitled to change your beneficiary of your account to a qualified family member at any time. Here's a good example. Let's say you put money away for, your son, grandson, Billy. And when it comes time for college, grandson or son Billy gets all these college scholarships, and they don't need the money you've been putting away all these years. Mm-hmm. So then at that time, you could change the beneficiary, you the owner, to say their brother or sister. Or maybe, hey, everybody gets a college scholarship, and maybe we could change the beneficiary to say you, Eric. Maybe you establish this plan as a parent. Of course, all your grandchildren are, above average, and they all get full college scholarships. Or they can, score a lot of touchdowns, so they get an athletic scholarship. But anyway, you could always change it to yourself, and maybe later in life, you want to go back to college. It can also be changed besides siblings or parents. It can also be changed to first cousins. And there's a whole list of people it can be changed to.
Oh, okay.
In effect, it's immediate family, but there's some ifs, ands, and buts. There's always exceptions, because that's what the federal government does. There's always exceptions.
Yeah, and in that case, it sounds like it's a good exception. If I've got a niece or a nephew that needs help with that, that would be nice to be able to assign it to them if my children didn't need it or my grandchildren didn't need it. Is it possible to split a 529 plan beneficiary-wise?
Eric, you can't really set up one plan for two beneficiaries. You would have to have one savings plan
gotcha.
Per beneficiary.
Okay.
And then also one of the next things is your investment options. And 529 savings plans vary widely in the different investment options that they might offer. In a perfect world, you want to find a plan with a whole bunch of different investment options that range anywhere from conservative to maybe more growth oriented, or maybe even aggressive, depending on the risk tolerance you want to take in the portfolio. Now, a lot of 529 plans have tried to take the guesswork out of picking different investment options, and they now have options based on the child's age. And as the child gets older, the portfolio gets more conservative as your child gets closer and closer to their college age. Now, again, remember, you are taking some risk. In effect, most of the time you're buying mutual funds.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's risk. Mutual fund can go up in value. It can go down in value. So look at the track record of the different investment options and then pick what you are comfortable with. The other thing you want to consider, but I don't go overboard on this, is the fees and expenses. Fees and expenses obviously can vary widely among plans, and they do. High fees can potentially take a bigger bite out of your savings. Lower fees, obviously just the reverse. But don't just base your decision on, hey, this plan has lower fees than this plan. Look at performance.
Yeah.
After the fees have been taken out, because the performance can vary widely.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing I like to look at is the reputation of the financial institution. How long have they had 529 plans around? The second thing I look at is, hey, do they have good service? Is it a good website? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to understand? When I call the 800 number, do I get a prompt reply? Do I get a satisfactory answer? So there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a whole bunch of 529 plans out there that I will not consider. Some of them are pretty good plans, but the service just is terrible, and I'm just not going to deal with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and then there are some plans, there's not a lot of them, but there are some 529 savings plans that are only advisor sold. In other words, you can't just do it on your own. You must sit down and talk to a financial advisor. And why some states have chosen that model is they want you as the consumer to really understand the plan. Because sometimes people, if they just read what's on the internet, they kind of, they see what they want to see, and they don't consider all the factors involved.
Yeah, it's like Googling, I don't feel good. I Google something, as far as my health care, and then there's a lot of suggestions on what I could buy and do. It's probably not going to be a good idea just for me to go out and buy a bunch of medication, take it, hope for the best.
Yep, there you go. Now, once you finally selected a plan, opening an account is pretty darn easy. You fill out an application, and we always fill them out for our clients here. I don't trust my clients. I shouldn't. Please understand what I'm saying. I just want to make sure it's done right, and also it's a convenience. So the client comes in, we've already got their date of birth, social security number, the kid's information, and also we know how to fill out forms because they can vary widely from company to company, and then we sit down and decide exactly what investments, and how the money's going to be allocated. Now, once you do make your choice of investments, federal law allows you to make changes twice per year. So let's say you buy mutual fund A today. In 6 months from now, you don't like mutual fund A, you can switch to mutual fund B. And then 6 months after that, you don't like mutual fund B, you can switch to mutual fund C. And you can mix and match. You're not limited to just investing in one particular mutual fund portfolio. Maybe you set up an asset allocation on one, a large cap, mid cap, small cap, et cetera, et cetera. But then again, that's why you would want to probably sit down, talk to your financial advisor, and figure out what you think is best in your particular situation.
Yeah, just to be honest with you, if I'm coming to you to talk to you about these plans, I want you to fill out the information for me anyway, because I know that's a level of service that you guys offer, and I don't want to sit there and guess at different things and say, I think we should put this in that box and check this box this way. No, I'm definitely going to let you and your team do it, because that's the service that I expect, and a service that I know that you offer.
Yeah, that's what we do. Plus, that keeps Aurora and Jill and Rachel, my 3 assistants, that keeps them employed.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, the more paper, I always call it paper pushing, and we push a lot of paper around here because we've got a lot of clients. They fill out paperwork. We've got stacks of paperwork on their desks right as we speak. And the other thing is, some people think that it takes a lot of money to put money in a 529 plan. Most 529 plans, Eric, will let you start out for as little as $50 a month.
Oh, wow.
So it is not a high barrier to entry. And, they just set it up. They'll draft it out of your bank account every month. And in fact, I've got lots of clients that do that. We just draft, $50 a month or $100 a month or whatever the amount is. And that kind of brings us now to how much money can you put in to a 529 account? Remember, Eric, you and me and everybody else listening, and it's 2019 in this recording, you can give to anybody you want $15,000 a year. Your lovely wife can contribute $15,000 a year to anybody you want. Mm-hmm. So that means you could set up a 529 account and put in $30,000. There's no gift taxes involved either to the giver or the receiver, and you set up a 529 account. But what if you are in a position, and there's a few people that are in this enviable position, and it's usually grandparents. Parents usually don't have a lot of extra money laying around.
Yep.
But let's say you're a grandparent, you're retired, you've been a very good saver, you've got a lot of extra money in the world, and you like your kids, but you love your grandkids.
Absolutely.
And you decide, hey, I'd like to put a lot of money in little Bobby's 529 savings plan. Mm-hmm. The government allows you to put, since the limit is $15,000 per person, so I can put in 15, my wife can put in 15, so we could give the child $30,000. But the government allows an accelerated gifting feature for 529 plans. They let you put, if you want to, up to 5 years at a time into a 529 plan, which means you could put as much as $150,000 in one big chunk into a single 529 plan for a grandchild or child, perfectly within the law and the limits.
Wow.
Now with limit, yeah, and I've seen that just a few times since I've been a financial advisor, but it also means, remember, you've done 5 years worth of gifting. So in year 6, if you wanted to, you could do it again. You could put in another $150,000 in year 6. So it's an accelerated gifting plan. It's allowed by law. So whatever the limit is per year, currently it's $15,000 times 2 for a husband and wife, $30,000. Then you could times that times 5. $150,000 in one big swoop. And if you're doing that when a child was just born, when they're like age 0, and you put $150,000 away for college, and it's going to sit there and grow for like 18 years, you probably got college paid for that child.
I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, what a gift.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the parents are going to be real happy if it's the grandparents doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great benefit. And then the last thing I want to cover, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion on this, is there are 2 types of 529 plans. We've been talking about the 529 savings plan. But there's another thing, it's kind of a distant cousin out there. It's prepaid tuition plans, like they have that here in Texas. So I can go to the state of Texas and prepay today what college is going to cost in the future. So a prepaid tuition plan lets you prepay tuition at participating college, and they're normally going to be in-state public colleges. That's normally. And you pay at today's price for the beneficiary in the future. Say if college is costing, $50 a semester hour, or whatever the cost is, you're paying $50 now because who knows what it's going to cost in 18 years. Mm-hmm. So it is a 529 plan, but it's a 529 prepaid tuition plan versus what we've been talking about this morning is a 529 savings plans. They're both 529s, but a little bit different. They basically have the same tax advantages, but they're a little bit different in the structure and how they work. So that would be something you would, like Texas has one. They had one years ago called the Texas Tomorrow Fund. It ran into some problems. They froze it for a while, and now they have a new prepaid tuition plan here in Texas. And most states, not all, but most states do have a prepaid plan. That's something you'd want to check with your particular state.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay, so that covers 529 savings plans, Mr. Eric. So I think we're down to the answer of our trivia question. You said you think you know the answer to Bert and Ernie on Sesame Street, who they were named after.
I think I do. It's from A Wonderful Life. And it's the cab driver and the bus driver, if I'm not mistaken.
You are exactly right. It's Bert the cop. And by the way, here's real trivia.
Right.
Who played Bert the cop in It's a Wonderful Life, the movie?
I don't know.
See, I know that. It's Ward Bond, who years and years later had a TV series called Wagon Train. That tells me I'm old. That was on when I was a kid. And then Ernie is named, again, the character in there, but Ernie, the guy who played him in the movie, is a guy named Frank Phelan, F-A-Y-L-E-N. And Frank Phelan went on his kind of biggest stardom later in life, again, was a television show. And he played the father on a TV show called Dobie Gillis.
All right.
And that's real trivia. So Bert and Ernie, they were named after really the real people, Ward Bond and Frank Phelan, but it's Bert the cop and Ernie the cab driver in the movie It's a Wonderful Life that they show every Christmas.
Right on. Hey, I'm just happy I got one right.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Gary, for all your time. And if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you about these different plans, why don't you give them your number so they can get a hold of you?
It is 281-359-7900, 281-359-7900, or you can go to our website, which is www.thekig.com, and there's a place in there you can ask questions or ask for more information. So we're easy to get a hold of.
Fantastic. Thanks again for your time, Gary.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
All right. And thank you all for listening to the Retirement Guy podcast with Gary Alden. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Gary comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And if you've got friends and family that are thinking about the grandkids or the kids and planning for the future, this is one you definitely want to share. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Kingwood Investment Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Guy podcast. Click the subscription button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Kingwood Investment Group. The content has been made available for information and education purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions that you may have regarding your investment planning. Kingwood Investment Group is independent of Next Financial Group, Inc. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, Inc., member FINRA/SIPC.